Middle Cough.
Hey, behaves.
You recovered yet? Have you recovered from your AJ Brown? Yeah, there wasn't a lot of oomph behind that one.
I've recovered. Yeah, I slammed about 7 liquid IVs over the last 24 hours, and I'm feeling better. They hydrate you. Yeah, they hydrate you. Promo code AM. It really works. I've been hearing about them for a while, and then finally we started doing business with them, and I tried a couple of them, mainly out of necessity. God, I feel rejuvenated. It's taken me. I was hungover probably for 36 hours. It was dehydration. I was dehydrated.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. The hangover ended quickly. The after effects. By the way, you and I were talking about Ed Orgeron earlier. We've been talking about him a lot, and we were debating whether or not, what was the deal? He hit on a woman at a gas station that was like a head honcho's wife. Was that the story?
Yeah, the Athletic did a breakdown of some of his changing of his personality. Ed lost who he used to be, and it was like 7 different sections. And one of the sections was his prowess with the ladies, and it was a lot of stuff like, bringing his girlfriends that, were quite younger than him, some of their young children. They would get to jump into drills. And I'm pretty sure like the last paragraph was a moment that like did him in. He was at a gas station down in the bayou, and a very good looking lady was also filling up her tank right next to him. Ed, feeling good, national champion, 6-year, $42 million deal. He started having some newfound confidence, freshly divorced, started hitting on this lady who in the article was pregnant. Turns out not pregnant, but it was like, Jesus, Ed. And it turned out she was a wife of a board of director, and it got back to the board of directors. And then, of course, Scott Woodward, who's now the athletic director, and it was a big thing. But as you did some digging, you're a good detective guy.
I didn't do any digging. I just went to the story because I'd missed your thing about the person was pregnant. So I went back to the story 10 minutes ago. Editor's note. I've never seen an editor's note like this. The story has been updated to reflect that the woman Ed Orgeron encountered at a gas station was not pregnant as previously reported. The Athletic regrets the error. Was she showing in the initial story? Like, was she pregnant, visibly pregnant? And that's why Eddie O.
No.
The insinuation that he was hitting on her because she was with child?
Yeah, the story was weird because she was not with child. The way they described her was she was in workout clothes. He was in workout clothes. I mean, he was just in a coaching outfit probably, right?
Sure.
And his line was, "You look like you work out. We should work out sometime." And part of it was like she was pregnant, and you were thinking, Ed's really losing it, man. This is pretty nuts.
But again, why is the fact, or not the fact, the mistake that she was pregnant relevant to the Ed story? Is my question. Like, was it that?
Because it was trying to make him look like a scumbag,
right? So meaning she's visibly showing a child, a stomach. And so it would be clear to him that child came from somewhere, i.e. she has a partner potentially.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
that's
Ed, she's more than likely married or something, and you're hitting on a married pregnant woman.
Because I didn't know, maybe the story was like...
It was trying to take down his character. To me, throwing the pregnant element in there.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty big redaction, is it not? Redaction?
Both, yeah. Retraction and redaction.
I mean, if I'm Ed, I need that. Like, no, she was a good-looking woman. I hit on her. I did not know she was, Bill Johnson's, who happens to be the vice president of LSU's wife or something. Because that was the connection. It was like, damn, he hit on the wrong woman.
Right, right.
But then when she has a baby bump, you're like, God, Ed, this guy's on one down there in the bayou.
So the other part of it then is the idea of like, there have been 300 things said about Ed Orgeron's character over the last 3 days, right? And the idea of him stomping around going, I don't care about any of the rest of it. She wasn't pregnant. She was not pregnant.
He admitted there was the women part of the article, and then there was like a coaching part of the article. It was like Pete Carroll's a mentor of Ed, right? He worked for him at USC. He still leaned on Pete. And when he lost Brady and Aranda, part of the reason he let Dave Aranda go, I guess, was he wanted to run like a 4-man front, and he needed a guy. So he calls Pete, and he goes, Pete, I need a coach. And he's like, I got a guy who's out of work. This guy's the real deal. Bo Pelini. And I think Ed admitted, like, he didn't actually interview him. He just went on, like, Pete's recommendation, and they hired him, and they had the worst statistical year in the history of the program. And I'm pretty sure the program's been around since, like, 1890. So it didn't. But Ed was admitting, I should have sat down with him longer. So it was just, a lot of things were just kind of, it's a major hit piece on Ed. It's just, and that felt like the nail in the coffin of, like, he got married, he got divorced after 23 years of marriage to, I think her name was like Miss Wendy or something.
Kelly,
and they
maybe?
Miss Kelly.
It's always
felt like he was
just
he was like, is he just copying Nick because isn't Nick's wife Miss Terry? It's like, what are we doing here?
I think it's just what you call people in the South, right? Women,
Maybe
you put
it
the
is.
miss in front of the name.
Yeah, I mean, where we come from, you just say like Joan or Julie or Alyssa, but I guess that's the thing down there. But once he became freshly divorced, he went on a tear, and married or not, he was coming. Pregnant or not, it looked like for a second. So I think a little bit more of them now.
I heard Jeff Schwartz made a good point because he said, wait a second, isn't the first part of the report that coaches don't want to coach with him, players don't want to play for him? Why is he coaching the rest of the year then? Sucks for those guys. Like, hey, did you hear Ed's out? Yep. Oh, but he's still coaching the rest of the year? That's kind of weird.
I had the thought that if he hadn't have won the national championship, 100% he would have been fired. He did bring the program one of the greatest probably 6-month stretches in the history of LSU. Doesn't he deserve, even if it gets a little weird, like, he's a Louisiana guy. I started thinking there's just a right way to handle it and everything. I don't know. You might know more about Scott Woodward than me, but it just feels a little bit like a classy thing to do, whether it's the right thing to do. I heard I heard an SEC guy that covers the SEC was like, well, one of the problems also is they did not have an assistant coach that even remotely came close to feeling good about giving him the interim tag. Like Jake Peets is their offensive coordinator.
Right.
Who was the assistant quarterback coach like 4 years ago for Derek Carr.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Scott Woodward's the guy that hired Chris Peterson at Washington.
He hired Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M.
Hired Jimbo Fisher at A&M. Yeah. So, no, you could argue
Jimbo Fisher's 10-year, $100 million contract has a zero buyout, no buyout.
Shocking information when you told me that today. How is that possible?
I love Texas A&M. I'm not going anywhere. This is where my wife is. This is where my foundation is. I love everything that's going on. I have a great chancellor. I have a great president. I think he's got a new one.
Oh, he got remarried?
Yeah. He's actually pretty good looking, too. He went through a midlife crisis.
Him and Ed probably have some stuff in common, I guess. But I can't believe he doesn't have a buyout.
Again, I'm not spreading rumors here. You can validate it on the Reddit streams. I'm pretty sure Jimbo's ex-wife had a moment with a Florida player on a lake. If things got a little weird. So I don't even blame Jimbo for going through some things.
Yeah, I don't blame him either. I'm just saying I don't know.
It felt
There's
like
a lot of money
Ed,
flying around down there.
Yeah, it felt like Ed kicked Miss Kelly to the curb and wanted to just roam like a horse in the hills,
That's how the story made it seem. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how the story made it seem. That would not be the time to bail, but you never know. I mean, who knows?
Don't you though, in a serious note, didn't he deserve, like, if he's like, hey man, it means a lot to me to coach like this program, what I brought to you, I don't know, 18 months ago. The more I thought about it, not an ideal situation, but
so I don't know about deserve. I think that there's some I can see your logic. I do wonder if it was just as simple as they did just beat Florida. It'd be one thing if they just gotten their ass handed to them and looked like they couldn't compete and that they were some, haphazard operation. But I think if you're the athletics director, you're like, if we're winning games, like if we're competitive, we still sell more tickets. We still sell more beer, probably in some weird way. I don't know if it makes it easier to recruit or not, but you're just more respectable. Their team competed the other day. They beat Florida.
Yeah.
So, I can understand just because they're playing well. If you're playing like dog shit, then you replace the coach and, whatever. No one can criticize you. But they're not.
I'm pretty sure they scored 49. I think they won that game 49-42. Like they were pretty explosive in that game.
If no one wants to play for him and no one wants to coach with him, at least are they playing well out of spite then?
Part of the article, too, was like, they score 49 points because at any moment they should be able to do that. They have 75 NFL players on this roster. It's part of the reason he's getting fired. Do you know that the last 3 coaches have, part of this deal is Les Miles, Ed Orgeron, Nick Saban. Like, you go there, you win a national championship.
Yeah.
It's a
2 of them fired.
Yeah, 2 of them fired. Nick actually, I think, has been on record and said it's one of his great regrets. I think it all worked out. Yeah, like he had a good thing going.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially what happened next was not positive. Rodney on the stream chat says, just dropped in to say Max Crosby is the highest rated pass rusher in Pro Football Focus. I know you see this, Haberman. Put it on the screen for John. Middlecoff is very pro Max Crosby.
I will not. No, I'm kidding.
The long arms.
LSU against Florida. This feels like Nevada versus Fresno State back in our heyday. 45 rushes, 321 yards, 7 yards a carry. That is a bludgeoning. Oh my God.
That's what Urban Meyer's looking for, John.
Yeah, he is. Nice 300. What would
250,
that be?
250.
Yeah, so he'd go 320, 180. He'd feel good about that.
Yeah. This podcast is brought to you, sponsored by, in part, our friends, the great product, Tito's Handmade Vodka.
Number 1 vodka in America. Kind of like the Georgia Bulldogs, number 1 team in America. Tito's number 1 vodka in America. I was in a car the other day with a couple people that got roadies. One got a John Daly. The other got a vodka soda. That's not legal, though, so don't take roadies unless no one's paying attention.
This is not part of the Tito's ad.
Yeah, it's not part of that. Is not sponsored by Tito's. That's sponsored by Middlecoff. So Tito's number 1 vodka in America. I think I'm actually going to have a cocktail a little later today, and I just can't rave about this stuff enough. Everyone keeps sending us your pictures and your videos. I can't get enough. I mean, guy, we are getting people tweeting at us on Tuesday morning. I swear to God, I saw one this morning at 8 a.m. And it's not like the guy was like in Florida. The guy was like in Nevada. They're on Pacific Standard Time, and he was having cocktails. Another guy at the bar, golf course. That one probably was 9:30 a.m., and I'm pretty sure he was drinking too. Tito's golf bag. So we love it. You got to start early.
That's right. That one looked like it was at Wolf Creek was the golf course. Where's Wolf Creek? Is that Reno?
I don't know. It sounds fun though.
It looked like the Nevada Wolfpack logo. But absolutely, John, Tito's Handmade Vodka, the number 1 vodka in America, double gold. That's how it all started at the San Francisco Spirit Awards. And then they just kept winning and kept winning and kept winning, and into Trader Joe's and all over America and all over the world. And then bam, the next thing you know, it's the number 1 vodka in America. Why? Because it's built first and foremost on quality. Quality first and foremost. Not about hype, not about extra flavors. You can make a lot of flavors, a lot of good drinks. But first and foremost, it's about the product, John. It's about the vodka. It's about the quality.
Also, the official vodka, the PGA Tour. No big deal.
That.
See, the PIP ratings came out. Tiger, number 1, hasn't hit a shot. He got the $8 million. But PGA Tour sponsors Haberman Middlecoff. Can't recommend it enough. Go get yourself a bottle. Bevmo, Albertsons, Safeway, Living Davis, Nugget.
Wherever you go. The corner store, go see Elias at Sherman Market. Tito's Handmade Vodka, America's original craft vodka, distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly. AJ on the stream said, I'm a bourbon guy, but my wife made me try Tito's the other day. Not going to lie. Pretty good. Tell your wife thanks for listening. Podcast also brought to you by mybookie.ag, promo code HAM and the number 1. Mybookie.ag, promo code HAM and the number 1. Where right now, MyBookie is doubling your first deposit up to $1,000. If you accept that bonus, you do have to bet the full amount before you can withdraw funds. You can also decline the bonus. But either way, let them know that we sent you.
So you can put up to $1,000 and get it doubled. That's hard to beat. I don't know if you want to bet on Deportes. We have the AL and NLCS going on. We got college football that is just coming down the home stretch. We have the NFL going into week 6. Pretty good. I mean, not a terrible Thursday night game. Denver at Cleveland. I mean, it's not great, but it's definitely not Jags Houston. I'm into it. My take is early take for lock of the week. is because the NFL slate did not do much for me, and I didn't feel good about anything. There were some enormous lines. I think there's an 18-point line. There's a 15-point line. This is the time when some of the shittier teams starts playing some of the really good teams, and the Bears are getting 15 points against Tampa, and the Texans, was it against the Cardinals are going to be 7-0, guy. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM1. I like Oregon plus 2.5 at UCLA. Rose Bowl, I would imagine a large percentage of their roster are LA guys. I'm sure they have countless starters. I know Kayvon obviously is from Southern California. This is a big game for the Oregon program. They obviously recruit that area heavily. They always have, but now under Mario, who's getting some rumors, LSU, they're gonna come after him.
I don't expect it. Yeah, I think it's
plus 2.5.
Oregon. Here's the other thing. Here's the other carrot out there dangling for Oregon. That you could convince me that's the lock of the week. It's not crazy. I do think the one thing you'd say about UCLA, they have a clear identity, which is they run the hell out of the ball. And Oregon's got some issues on offense. They do run the ball, and I love their offensive coordinator Joe Moorhead. I think he's fantastic.
Is he back?
He's back. He came back last week. Yeah, but they play up. Like, this has been the deal with them. They play up to teams. They play down to teams. Here's the other carrot that's dangling. And again, I was texting with Jeff Schwartz. He reminded me of this. I'd forgotten that the winner of this game, how about this? The winner of the UCLA-Oregon game is going to Fox has said the winner of this game, they're going to put on 12:30 Pacific Fox kickoff the next week. They've already said that. Whoever wins this game, so it's either not this Saturday, but the next Saturday, either going to be Oregon, Colorado on FOX or UCLA, Utah, I believe is the game.
Gotcha.
Which is actually a better game. But the point is, if you're a player...
this is an ABC game, right?
Yeah, it's a big game, too. This is College Game Day. College Game Day is at Oregon, Ohio State. So...
I didn't know that. It's Rose Bowl? Okay, I'm in.
Rose Bowl.
So to me, this is... When I see some of the Mario to LSU, like, I think Mario is very similar to Ed. Now, I think maybe... I don't know. Is Mario married? It feels like he's a little more buttoned up.
Yes, I believe so.
Feels like he's a little more buttoned up.
I would say he's very buttoned up, yeah.
Yeah, so the chasing women, you feel better about that. But just in terms of the ebbs and the flows and the recruiting and what is he really doing, he has an identity. He's a tough guy. I think he has too many parallels to Ed for LSU to go down that road.
That's interesting. I think he's far more buttoned up, but I understand what you're saying. Like, he's not an offensive play caller. He's not a defensive play caller.
But like you brought up the stat, we're all shitting on Ed. Ed went 13-5 against ranked teams. Like, Ed was winning games. I mean, Mario lost to Stanford at Stanford. Now, obviously, Ed had some losses, but I love Oregon in this spot, plus 2.5. If you're in, I'm in for the lock of the week.
Okay. I hadn't thought about the lock yet.
If Oregon hadn't lost that Stanford game, what's this line? Oregon by 3? If they were undefeated in a top 2-3 team?
Yeah, maybe more. NBA starts. We didn't mention that. The Warriors are 3.5-point underdogs against the Lakers on opening night, by the way, John. Do you want to wait until you see how Steve Kerr uses his bench before you bet on the Warriors?
I think that's a Warriors Twitter. Are they running pick and roll this year, guy? Are they running pick and roll? All right. I've watched enough NBA. You just fucking run and gun.
Oh, John, speaking of the NBA, before we get to the a few other things. It's not really NBA starts as we record this Tuesday. 2 games, right? What's the other Warriors Lakers and what's the other game?
Nets Bucks. They get their rings.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good game.
That is a good game.
And then so we've also got the biggest story of the day though has been Ben Simmons and practicing with what was the tweet on this? Practicing with a phone in his pocket. Oh, here we go.
That was 2 days ago. He's practicing the phone in his pocket, and then today he refused to go into drills. The phone in the pocket is pretty nuts.
I just the way I discovered the story was one of these Josiah Johnson tweets. Ben Simmons when the phone rings at Sixers practice.
That's pretty good.
So the question is like, what's a better story for an old guy to hate on? Just like, get off my lawn, old guy sports talk take. DK Metcalf not knowing maybe who Shannon Sharpe is, or Ben Simmons practicing with a cell phone in his pocket. This is these stories, you would kill for these 2 stories in like June. This is good stuff.
I think the old school guy, because I know myself, the DK Shannon one, I was like, this feels very like 22-year-old. The Simmons feels like when we were kids. Guys, getting in fights with coaches, getting kicked out of practice. That feels very NBA David Stern's NBA, back when the NBA was crushing and it felt like the NFL. Like that was guys getting in fights, guys getting kicked out of practice. Now, you didn't bring a phone in your pocket because the phone didn't exist. But it was those type moments like refusing to go in for drills, just an old school coach, star player, button heads demanding trade. Like that's the NBA we grew up on.
Yeah, hell yeah, it is.
To me, DK, Shannon Sharpe is classic old guy. Like, you don't respect one of the greatest pass catching tight ends of all time. And that was my first take. I'm like, you don't know. And then I realized I go to the Google and I go to the wiki page. Shannon Sharpe retired in 2003. And then I'm like, I wonder what year DK was born. Like, my first thought is like 1990, just because that's just my brain thinks. He's born in 1997. So when Shannon retired, he was 6. And we've talked about the study before. You don't come into your own as a sports fan until you're 8. So he wasn't even in that mind. I was just around a 6-year-old. They're not even thinking like that. I don't even blame DK. Is there a chance that DK, if he had seen Shannon on TV with Skip, thought he was just like Fox versions of Stephen A. Smith?
Absolutely.
Media guy?
Absolutely. Like, I think this is now, I don't like to say if something happened before you were born or like fully conscious, that's not necessarily an excuse to not know. But
he's 23 though, DK.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you talk every day on a sports talk show, then people associate you with that. Like, DK has seen 900, if he's on social, who knows how many tweets about like clips of something that Shannon Sharpe said, and no Shannon Sharpe highlights. So if you
think who he's arguing with in those clips, right? Probably the most famous media troll of all time.
So if you spend all day doing that, then you have to be aware that people might see you as that guy, not as football player Shannon Sharpe, right? They'll perceive you as a hot taker, and it won't totally be their fault because all they see is takes, which is fine. I'm not saying it's a noble profession, John. But if that's what I see of you every day, then that's what I associate you with. My DK take is pretty simple. Like, I don't have a problem with the criticism of DK one bit. The play at the end of that game, he fumbles trying to like score a touchdown with a guy in front of him. Yeah. As long as he can take that criticism from Pete Carroll and coin flipping Russell Wilson, then it's fine. I don't blame any guy who plays a sport not taking Twitter criticism from Shannon Sharpe as like, oh, thank you, dear veteran, for sharing your wisdom with me. So, DK probably should be like, yeah, I fucked up, but I get it. You get a little defensive. Who's this guy on Twitter?
I think there's a Twitter manifesto that you follow as a shit talker. My go-to was always buddy or champ. That was the easiest way to kind of belittle a guy is drop a buddy or champ. I do think when someone brings up something tangible, especially like a resume, you think about it like a piece of paper. I do really appreciate DK dropping, I will wipe my ass, basically, with your resume. Like, that is just, he is not, you don't pivot when you're in just the firing line of a good Twitter argument, especially one of this magnitude. I don't blame DK. Now, it was not only a questionable play, DK's effort level, if it wasn't for, I think, Swain, picks up the ball because Russell jumps on the field and Pete, they're screaming at him, get to the middle of the field so we can spike the ball. Did you see DK like kind of like lollygag back? Like, DK, there's 10 seconds left. What is going on? His hair, too. He's changing colors. I mean, I always give people the benefit of the doubt with the hair, but God, he's changing colors a lot.
Somebody said he has a follow-up tweet that says, Shannon, you're right if you look at DK's profile. Here's the other complicating factor on the Simmons thing is like, they've been trying to trade him. They're kind of talking shit about him. It's kind of crazy that he showed up, like that it even got to that point where he's still on the team, because it's a pretty messed up situation in Philly.
It's easy, though, to talk shit on Twitter. I mean, we've all done it. Every single human probably listening, if you're on Twitter, has done something that you're like, you think back a couple days, like, that wasn't necessary. I give Simmons, I will say this. I don't agree with it. And the way I was raised, I would have been backhand. Like, when I would have got home, even like if I had been a pro athlete and done this, my parents would have sided with the coach. To do that in front of Doc Rivers, also his coach is not. It's one thing if it was, who was the dude from Israel that LeBron like got fired?
David Blatt.
Yeah, it's like, okay. But to do that in front of Doc Rivers, like I do give Simmons, like that takes some sort of cojones.
Totally.
Especially don't you think all the other guys in the room are like, what the fuck's he doing? It was probably a pretty wild moment. I know Doc. I saw he said like it wasn't that crazy. I just told him to leave and he left. It probably was a little crazier than that.
Even if that's all it was, like the guy refused to go into a defensive drill.
Yeah. Did you see the video with I just noticed it, the video with the phone. They're all wearing their Sixers, practice jerseys. He's wearing an LSU pullover.
You know what? I thought the same thing. Hold on. How do I go back to it? Oh,
That's
yeah,
a classic. Like,
yeah.
Look,
no. It doesn't. CCC. I thought the same thing. It actually says 76ers.
Okay.
It looks like Tigers. You're right. I thought the same thing.
Okay, you're right. Yeah.
It looks like Tigers, though.
I would support that. That's a pretty good looking, like, just lay around the house hoodie.
This from Matt on the stream. Russell Wilson talked to his imaginary huddle, and they thought DK should apologize.
What was your take on that?
It's weird. Now, again, I have a question. It's easy to have a take like, bro, what are you doing? Like, this is not the same as Drew Brees yelling out calls in an empty, because there's cameras on you. Like
Drew Brees was playing the next day. That was Reggie Bush was like, this is the guy's routine.
Now, there is something to be said for just like, you practice like you play. Like, you got to practice the play. You got to do the play call. All right, set hut. He got the wrong play call out in the Fail Mary, so he's been doing this ever since. I don't know. But when there's cameras there, it just feels so disingenuous. It's kind of crazy. Now,
what about his take when he was running from like the 15-yard line to the 7-yard line? He's like, on the ball. That was my personal favorite. On the ball.
Has he commented on it? Has anyone asked him about it?
No, he did. When you're injured, you can avoid the media. So
you can do the coin toss, but you don't do the media.
It's hard because I do think my take was when you're that good, like, what if that is truly something that he does? I can't totally shit on him because it works.
If that's been his whole thing for a long time behind closed doors, then I can't have a problem with it.
It's a little, I think Bryson's got some things that drive people nuts, but it's working. It gets to the point where do you vision Peyton Manning or Tom Brady doing that? I don't know.
I have zero issue with him doing it if he does it all the time. If he only did it then I feel like it's for the cameras. That would be my take. But
he just hurt getting a sweat,
The huddle on the knee too, on the knee.
On the hut, guys, on the hut. You look around, going there.
God,
that had to be.
There's a lot going on in some of these locker rooms, John.
Well, you and I have gone early to some of these NFL games. To get half the field to yourself pregame warmups, how early would he have been there? Probably 4 hours. Because I would say by about 3 hours, there were guys out on the field. He had
especially
the whole side
for
to himself.
A road game. Did he come to the arena, the stadium separately?
He might have. He wasn't doing that 2 hours before the game. There would have been people on the field, right? He was there. That was Ray Allen style. Like, he got there early to pull that shit off. He's like, Michelle, over here. Wink, wink.
What time are your camera guys back? Because the camera guys will take a lunch break like 4 hours before the game. So you got to make sure the camera guy is there pre or post lunch break to pull that off.
Al just take the weekend off. Was he just over it? I was like, is Tirico going? Where's Al? He's like, I don't really want to fly to Pittsburgh. I'm like, I don't know.
Maybe Al had like a vacation plan from last year. COVID, they were like, you better use it by October 20th or you're going to lose your deposit on this Greek cruise. And I was like, fuck. His wife's like, you got to go, Al.
He could have been,
we're going.
The boat. He uses the boat after Magic is done with it.
Yeah, it's like a timeshare. Exactly.
Yeah, I could see that.
The boat after Magic is done with it. It's got the weights already on it. You already paid for the weights. On the chat, he was literally looking right at the camera as he was driving down the field with his fake team for his fake touchdown. So good. All right, John, Sunday Night Football is coming. The Niners and the Colts, an opportunity ahead. John Lynch asked by Matt Mayoko if there's a crisis, if the Niners are in crisis. He said, no, we are not in crisis. And I really do view this game this week. It looks like Jimmy will be back. We'll talk about that. For Kyle Shanahan, because I think John Lynch did the interview. We talk about Trey and Jimmy, but Kyle is at the center of every one of these diagrams. It's an opportunity for Kyle to kind of get just to get it back, get to 500, do it on Sunday Night Football, and feel like you can, if not get your mojo back, at least just chill the crisis questions, which have now begun.
Yeah, I mean, this guy went from, the Jim Harbaugh experience was unlike anything I've quite experienced, of a swag level from a coach. And it's not like, it's not like he was Brian Daboll dialing up these sweet plays. I mean, he wasn't even the offensive coordinator. Jim was just there. Now, he called in the plays, but they were coming from someone else. But Jim just had this swag that he made everyone believe, like, Jim Harbaugh is our coach. We're going to kick the shit out of you. Kyle was different because it felt like Jim would legitimately fight you. Like Jim would okay, you want to get in an actual fight? Like Jim would have been down. Kyle doesn't feel like that, but he felt like the cool dude. He actually felt very Californian, right? Flat bill hats, the Milan, having cocktails, just doing sweet shit, and then dialing up sweet plays. And everywhere you went, people were like, Kyle Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan. And it feels like everyone's kind of jumping off the bandwagon. And in fairness, it has been ugly. So are they in crisis? Anytime you have Super Bowl aspirations, hell, playoff aspirations, and you lose 3 straight games, this is not baseball. A 3-game losing streak in college football, or even in the NFL, obviously college football, it's devastating. But in the NFL, it's a really big deal too. Historically, in a 16-game season, you can lose 6 games, right, and get in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So we would be in the middle of October and being like, well, they only have 3 more games left, and that's if, and who knows, people could win more games. You still are not guaranteed. But it feels like Kyle had his worst 3-game stretch of his 49er career. Because even last year with the injuries, it just felt like, remember the game against the Eagles that Carson Wentz beat him? That game ended, and it was like Kyle had these fucking incredible plays dialed up. They had this leak out to use check. He was wide open, and he would have walked in the end zone from their own 30. It would have gone 70 yards, and Nick Mullins overthrows him. Then there's the other play where he throws a pick that hits some random Eagle who can't be any good because their team's terrible, right in the numbers. And whenever they lost last year, it was like Mullins and CJ suck because there were guys wide open. We're watching these games this year, and it doesn't feel that often, guy, where you're just like, that guy's wide open, man. That guy's wide open. And when I say wide open, there was a play, I watched the Cowboy game a couple days ago, and the overtime final play was they ran this deep breaking across the field route to CeeDee Lamb. Basically, they knew that if Jalen Mills gets matched up on CeeDee Lamb, this thing is, I don't know if they knew he was going to score because it was a 70-yard scoring play, but they knew it was going to be a huge play for the Cowboys. And it was just Kellen Moore, I'm sure Dallas Cowboy radio and everyone in Dallas, that was a big-time play call. Where are those from Kyle? And that's always where, in the heat of the McVay debate, was I'm taking Kyle. You can't say that right now with a straight face because Sean's kicking ass and taking names. He does not have 3-game losing streaks. And is there a crisis? To me, a crisis is you're getting fired. To me, a crisis is the New York Giants. But you have a problem on your hands. You are losing games to teams that coming into the season you viewed as equals. And you've lost multiple home games, right, back-to-back to Green Bay. And now in a weird way, it feels like your season's on the line, again, at home. So I would say if you lost this game in 4 straight games and 3 out of 4 at home, it would be a serious crisis. And it would reflect on Kyle.
I don't want to sound like a 8th grade speech. Usually it starts with something like a definition. Webster's defines crisis as, I think probably everybody between the age of 9 and 17 wrote a paper that had some version of that in it. If you open up a student newspaper and the student sports columnist is writing, there might be something like that. Crisis is defined by Webster's as, but I'll do it, a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger. Are they in crisis? That's not the way I think. I would not have thought of that word, but I do think they're on the verge of intense difficulty. If they lose the game, they're 2-4. And that makes it very hard to make the playoffs in a year where you absolutely had the goal of being a playoff team, if not a Super Bowl contender. This is not year 2, right? And then you have to decide, are you going to play the quarterback, Trey Lance, that it doesn't seem like at this point you want to play if Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy. So it does not match in my head what I would think of as crisis, but I do think there's actually some. I don't think it's as when I think of it in those terms, as crazy as I initially thought. It's they're in danger here. Now, in danger of what? In danger of being fired tomorrow? No. But in danger of this season.
Are the Seahawks at 2-4 with Russell injured? Would you say that's a crisis in their building?
I mean, yes, their season is absolutely in intense danger. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially when you also factor the elephant in the room. He had kind of demanded a trade, but not really. Said you could trade me, listed the teams. Like, they got some weird shit going on. There is a weird element here, I would say, the crisis, just because the Niners quarterback situation is a fluid, moving target. Now they have, he's got to prove he's the long-term guy, but who's going to be the quarterback at minimum the next 3 seasons, right? After this one, they're just going to
Trey Lance,
Daniel Jones. Like, the moment Daniel Jones was drafted, eventually once they get rid of Eli, you knew, good or bad, Daniel Jones was going to get 3 seasons. So to me, there's an answer. There's a finality of who the quarterback's going to be, but you got to, sometimes when you're weaving your way to that point. And I think Daniel Jones is a good example. It was tough with the Eli situation. Eli was over the hill. Sometimes it can be difficult, early on in that transitional period. Flacco and Lamar, remember, he started half the season. Then Lamar came in and it was, kind of sparked them. It's just a weird time for a franchise when you have, and I'm not, Jimmy, those guys have won, Eli won 2 and Flacco won the 1. But Jimmy was an established starting quarterback with the team. Kind of, I guess he was always injured, but it was a little different than those 2 individuals. But you get what I'm saying? I do think that creates just some weirdness, off the bat. And then the moment you lose, if you just lose, right, when I'm trying to think of a team like the Titans and the Bills, watching that Monday Night Football game, win or lose, their players are established, their starters are the starters. It's just, everything is well defined. Right? Now, you might have an injury at a position here and there. You could say that, the Titans, Farley, the guy they drafted in the first round, coming off back surgery, tore his ACL. That's the building today. That's not an ideal situation, but it's not like you're worried Tannehill or, whoever his backup is. I think when the quarterback position is kind of this teeter-totter and you don't win, things get weird fast. Because coaches, I've been saying this for a while, they just kind of live in that everyday mode as they have to. And then the front office, and if you're Jed, you're like, fuck, let's just see the kid, All the fans are saying that. What are we waiting for? And Kyle gets in this weird spot.
I think it gets hard, John, when your best players, when it changes week to week, what you're getting, right? Where Ayuk expected to be one. Now, Debo has not changed week to week. There are some guys that don't, but
Debo, Bosa, and Fred Warner.
Debo Samuel.
I know people have said Fred Warner's been he's still been one of the better Niners. He's bringing an A game.
Yeah, I just think that makes it. I think part of what we're talking about, it's not just wins and losses. Think about what would you say the most prevalent Niners conversations have been over the last, 5-6 weeks. Quarterback, duh. Shanahan, yes. I'd say Ayuk, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't think Kittle has been a conversation in the sense that there's no controversy there. But you just, for whatever reason, maybe it's because he's got to block more, the injury, he's not been 100%. They're just not getting what they need out of him. And it's not his fault. I'm not saying that. But they're not.
But for example, he's considered in this top 3 guys, right? Kelsey, Waller, him. When you watch
they are getting
Raiders,
from Bosa what they need.
Yeah, he's been awesome. When you watch the Raiders and when you watch the Chiefs, they depend on those guys. And they can't win typically. The Raiders definitely, they need Waller to be awesome. And for the most part, so do the Chiefs. Need Kelsey. And I watched some of the Chiefs Washington game. He makes some big plays. He's a big deal for them. You just remove George Kittle out. I take away, last night, Julio hurt his hamstring again. It feels like the 7th straight year that happened. But they still had A.J. Brown and the biggest human being we've ever seen playing running back. So you could just depend on those 2 individuals, right? And sometimes it feels like the Niners get down to just one. It's it's just hopefully Debo can pull some shit out of his ass here. And sometimes he does. So make some crazy catch with one hand, pin it against his helmet, break off 3 tackles, and take a yak for 20. But that's not sustainable, right? It's almost, it's unfair. He does need a little help. he's not getting it.
The running game too is we're reminded on the stream.
You need some balance in your offense. Like the Raiders, who we talked about on Monday coming off that game. Like when you have multiple players that are making big impacts, and that's what we thought coming in. They're like Ayuk and Daboll with Kittle. Boom. And even if Mozart tears his knee, it's like, well, you drafted multiple guys. That's the way the league works, right? You just plug in some new running backs. That's not really the way it's gone.
Well, and
even
you said
Elijah Mitchell looks good.
He does, but he's not been healthy every game. And as you said from the beginning, Mostert is just a cut above, even in terms of interchangeable Kyle Shanahan running backs. Mostert has been a cut above of the rest of them in his 49ers career. And losing him is hurt. Now, you're playing a Colts team this week that they're in a similar spot, right?
Well, they lose at 2-5 in the AFC. They would be.
Yeah, they actually have one more. Back? They haven't had their bye yet, so they're one game worse. They, though, have similarly played in some games that they probably think they should have won. They've lost one-score games to the Ravens and the Rams. Like, not all two-win, sub-500 teams are created equal. And two one-loss games to two of the best teams in the league. I think we can agree the Rams and the Ravens are that.
You calling them the best 2-5 team in the league?
Who are my other options?
I'm sure they are.
The best 2-4 team, are they the best game? Are they the best team that's 2 games under 500 in the NFL right now? They might be. Let's see. Seattle is 2-4. They lost to Seattle, but that was a different Seattle team.
I'm saying they're 2-4. They're 2-4. What's their record?
They're 2-4. If they were to lose, they'd be 2-5.
Yeah, I got you.
There's some good 2-4 teams in the NFL right now. Actually, Seattle, Philly, football team, and New England. Those are the 2-4 teams in the NFL right now.
Actually, pretty good list of 2-4 squads, huh?
Has there ever been a better list of 2-4 teams in the NFL? I say no, John. My take coming up next.
Probably not.
Right? So it's just, but this is not going to be, I do think you get some credit for this one. To go back to your original point, though, it does feel like there's just been a general 40, if anybody that's on a Niner social thread, if you've got Niner fans in your text messages, and as you and I both do, have multiple threads going, people are, it's focused on Shanahan. It's definitely focused on Shanahan. When there was a point in time where not really anybody said anything, if you said, yeah, this guy's one of the best coaches in the league, right? There was no reason really for resistance if you said that. Even at the end of last year, after you saw him do things with Nick Mullins, you go, okay, yeah, like I felt that way for sure. I'll just tell you my take was.
Well, did you, I know that I see it's trending on Twitter, the video, and I watched it a little bit on YouTube, but the video that he did with Mayoko, the sit down that Matt does every week with Kyle. And he clearly did it in the bye week with John instead of Kyle. And it did feel like John, and in fairness, like this guy's been around the NFL. He's won at the highest level. He's also been on some shitty teams. Like, he just looked like he was a little squirrely answering the question. Because
I thought so.
And in fairness, like the expectations were sky high. Anytime you have sky high expectations in pro sports, and it's one thing if you don't live up to them at the end of the season, right? If you think you're a Super Bowl team, and like you have a devastating loss in the second round of the playoffs. Like it's just devastating for everyone. But it ultimately wasn't a disaster, right? You went 12-4, maybe you won the division, or maybe you got a wild card and won the first game, but you thought you were going to win the Super Bowl. Like if let's say that happened in Kansas City this year, that would suck, but it's like if that's your low moment, okay. It's another thing like we got a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And then all of a sudden you look up, you're like lost 3 straight games. You go, "Holy shit, are we even going to sniff the playoffs?" And then you have a bunch of injuries. I did feel for a guy that is always just calm, cool, and collected, it's the nature of the NFL. And I think college football too. There is nothing like in football, in the Power 5 level or in the NFL, when people think you're going to be good and you just lose a couple games. There's nothing like it in baseball, not even close, because in baseball it does not matter. And even in basketball, the regular season. Mike! It's a big deal, guy.
Yeah,
in the building.
Is John Lynch happy? Right, he's doing the interview with Mayoko. Is he happy? If Matt said to him, "John, are you happy?" in an honest moment, he'd be like, "Oh, fuck." I would imagine when they sat down, like, "John, how you doing?" Could be better, Matt. Good to see you though. Right,
losing sucks.
Losing sucks, and so of course now crisis is kind of it feels like maybe it's a word you don't want to agree to, right? Like, yeah, we are pissed right now. Crisis makes it feel like you have lost control of a situation.
Yeah.
Right. But there's no question that they're not. Every time they show John Lynch on TV, it's clear he's like, just take me off TV.
But isn't the NFL a good example?
I don't blame him.
And again, I put college football in this too. It's one thing if you're like, Dan Campbell, we send Matt Stafford, complete reset, 6-year contracts, big picture. By mid-October, it's like, he's cried, he's called out his quarterback. Losing it wipes you out.
It'd be easier if they'd lost every game by 14 points, the Lions. But once when you feel like you're close, and the Niners have felt like they're close big picture, the Lions have felt like they're close in specific games, it makes losing.
And they were. Took a 66-yard field goal to beat them. And they had a lead with 37 seconds to go.
Yeah, a 66 and like a 58. Like they've lost
58.
Twice on extremely long field goals. I don't know. Was it 58? Whatever the other one was.
What would you say the worst loss is? 66 to Tucker. Might go down as the greatest kicker of all time. Most talented kicker of all time. Be hard for him to win
might
as
be
much
the greatest kicker of all time.
But Vinatieri's got like the 7 rings or whatever he's got.
Yeah.
You know, and the walk-off field
Sure,
goals. Even though
in the
Tucker's
snow,
probably better. Yeah.
The one in the snow.
Or
Who were they
taking the
playing that
lead.
day?
Taking the lead.
I don't remember.
Broncos? AFC West team, right?
Let me text Derek Papa.
That beating Kirk Cousins with 37 seconds and having him drive the field to get in field goal range. I think I could live with the Tucker. It's a historic moment. That sucks. But the Vikings, when it just happened to you, I think you might snap.
Yeah, I think you would too. I don't blame him. But again, your point is right. Like big picture, the Lions should not be close, and yet here they are.
That's a good question or comment there.
Read it.
The Niners have lost 9 points by a combined 9 points to 2 teams that are 11-1. They should be mad. They need to close games. I think that's the issue. Is coming into the season, we go, they got to start 2-0 because they're superior, and they did, and they took care of business in both games, even though both got a little weird. Then the next 3 games, you go, we're equals. Like we beat the Packers a couple years ago when we were good and they were good. So and that was a tight game. And then the next week, you're like, okay, coming off a loss, you're playing your divisional rival. And, like, the game was not as close as the final score indicated. I think the final score was 28-21. Like, that was, in the second half, a beatdown. And, a beatdown that was self-inflicted wounds of Cannon fumbling and muffing balls in the same play. It was a disaster. And then when your season's on the line, and not season on the line, but, like, kind of your pride. No team that was good wants to lose 3 straight games. But you're in this weird spot where you're starting a rookie quarterback, and it turns out you're playing the 27 Yankees of football. I mean, the Cardinals are playing the Texans. You're 7-0. The Cardinals are a absolute lock to make the playoffs because you're 7-0. There are 10 more games. If they just went 5-5 in those 10 games, they would be 12-5, right? And that's a minimum. A wild card, potentially win the division, right? If they win this weekend against the Texans, which they are a 27-point favorite, basically.
18.
Do you agree? Like they're a playoff team. You can just put a Z next to their name in the standings because how do they?
Yeah,
they could go. They could go 4-6
obviously.
down the line. They'd go 11-6.
Yeah, because I think the top of the NFC is really good. The middle of the NFC, which is the NFC competing for those last few playoff spots, is not great. Like there's 5 teams right now that have separated in the NFC, and they all have 5 wins. The Cardinals, the Bucks, the Cowboys, the Packers, and the Rams. Those are your 5-win teams. Nobody else in the NFC has 4. So those are 5 spots. There's 2 spots left. And I'd have a hard time seeing in your scenario an 11-win team at this point not making the play. I think an 11-win team makes
the Niners play multiple of those teams. They play the Vikings, who are 3-3. They play the Bears that are 3-3. That game that I think we all chalked up to be a pretty easy game against the Bengals. The Bengals are sneaky 4-2. That game's going to be a little harder. And then obviously they got to play
Tennessee.
They haven't played the Rams yet, and they got to play Seattle again with Russell probably be back by early December. It's not easy in Tennessee.
At Tennessee, they got to play the defending national champions, Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, that's true. Don't sleep on Urban. He's getting
Urban
his mojo.
said that win's bigger than anything he did college football.
Did cut their kicker today.
So we've seen them lose to Atlanta when Atlanta was bad before. I don't think that's an issue, but whatever. I mean, that now we're getting. I view that the same way I view the game this week, as an opportunity. Get some of it back. Get some of it back. Now you don't have to win 28-12, but God, if you did, that would. Ayuk 8 catches, something like that. What?
That's a pretty good comment. Tua seems like a bulky pick. That's
a
pretty
good
good
comment. I mean, that thing is
not going well, guy.
They went from like stacked system in terms of picks. Coach clearly headed the right direction. Compete in the division. Every year people take a step back. And I said before this year, they might be the team to take a step back. And
to me, having a rough season and then there's being 1-5 after a 10-win season. Like, that's pretty rattling. Walking in the building every day at 1-5. Do you know how far you have to dig yourself out of a hole just to sniff 500? You have to go on a 3-game winning streak, and you're still under 500. Like, that's just, they're in trouble. And they don't have their first-round pick. They have the Niners, but they gave their first-round pick to the Eagles. The Eagles got to be, like, we suck, and the Miami sucks. We're in pretty good shape.
Yep. What's the state of their Wentz pick? Wentz is back, so Wentz might play his percentage of snaps.
Yeah, I don't think Wentz is going anywhere. Do you?
In terms of leaving?
No, I'm just saying, like, even if the Colts are out of it, he's playing well enough.
Oh,
you build for the big picture. You just got to keep him playing.
Oh, by the way, did you see what they did today?
The Eagles?
No, the Colts.
No.
They waived Jacob Eason.
So who's their backup quarterback?
It's Ellinger.
That was a weird pick at the time. I
think Ellinger, or do they have another person?
No, it was Sam. I thought Sam got hurt though, but Eason, when they took him in the 4th round, I always think this as a general manager, like, when you're a GM, let's say obviously Chris Ballard of the Colts, half your Saturdays during the season, you're in a plane, you're going places, right, with the team because you go to every game. And then the other half of the Saturdays when you have a home game, especially, and he has a big family of kids that I think like 10 and under, you can't really just be like, hey guys, I'm just going to hang out in the family room. I'm going to watch like 7 hours of college football. I know you haven't really seen me all week. Like, you don't really intake the ebb and flow of the college football season. That's why you're very dedicated to your scouting staff. And for us out here on the West Coast, like, Eason was so hyped and he was coming from Georgia, and then you watch him, you're like, ugh, something's missing. But I can imagine Ballard, you just see the size, you see some of the highlights, and you can justify 4th round the value. To me, he was, if you truly watched him, and most GMs are just not going to truly watch the season, especially if you don't live on the West Coast, I would not have had him at a draftable player.
I would not have taken him. I said it at the time. He did have a very good preseason, but I thought it was a mistake when they did it. Again, the guy that Washington chose over Jake Haener. Yeah, not to make it about Jake Haener, but everything becomes about Jake Haener.
Yeah, just got a nice win against Wyoming.
Yep, bounced back after that midnight loss to Hawaii.
Luckily, no one saw.
That's right. John, let's tell the people about Puesto. Woo! Now, you want food. You want delicious margaritas and handmade tortillas turned into tacos of art. Then you want Puesto.
Love that little knife twirl right there.
For those of you listening to the podcast, we have a video that accompanies this on YouTube.
Yeah, Puesto. If you're going to the game this weekend, they sell tacos in section 110 and section 129. And if you go there and you get a taco, just tell them Ham sent you. Even though the guy giving you the taco probably won't know what you're talking about,
but won't have a clue.
Wink. But they also have restaurants if you live in the Bay Area or just Northern California and you're just around for business in the East Bay, Concord, about 10 minutes from where I'm sitting. Also in Santa Clara, right by this little thing I think goes by Great America and by Levi's. So if you're in that area, little Silicon Valley, maybe doing some deals with YouTube or Dell or whatever, you're down there working during the week, check out Puesto. If you live in Southern California, it's where they originated from, La Jolla.
La Jolla. I think cool when place. You go up to the Puesto counter, you should ask for one of the Adler brothers, Eric or Alex.
Yeah.
They founded the thing in 12 in La Jolla, like John said. But I would just be like, are the Adler brothers here? Eric or Alex back there? Just in case maybe someone wants to throw you a free guacamole just because they think you might be, is this an investor? Who is this person? Is Alex back there? Eric? Just tell him, Eric here? Adler's here? That's fine. Just tell him Gary said what's up. You never know. Maybe one of them pops out. And like, they're here. Know. You want to talk to him? And then you're like, oh, shit. Yeah, let me talk to one of them. And then say yes.
We know they want the 49ers to win this week. Big 49er fans. So,
personal favorite, the quesadilla taco, which is the crispy melted cheese braised short rib. I love it, but you can't go wrong. The shrimp, the asada, the Baja fish.
Guy, they have a filet mignon taco.
We had that one.
How do you beat that? Filet
the
mignon
bang
taco.
margarita.
Oh.
It's all good. Well, huge taco selection. Oh, I don't think they have this in the stadium. What did we get? We got the taquitos.
Oh, the taquitos were elite. Oh.
They're like a meal to themselves.
They were massive. They look like an enchilada, like that length and that size. You know, they were really good. The guacamole with the Parmesan little squares.
Parmigiano Reggiano.
No big deal. Pretty good.
One of my favorite words to say. So they got all the ton of tequila, 500 tequilas and spirits, and they got Tito's. So all the margaritas. They're brewing their own Mexican lagers. And you can get their beers at all their locations. So they have a beer. Their Negra Dark Lager just won an award at the Great American Beer Festival. So silver medal
fantastic.
In the International maybe it was Internacional. Anyway.
I feel like your wife, who's very good in the kitchen, would really appreciate their creativity with food. It's just like I said, it's hard to be creative and still be really good, and these guys pulled it off.
We should go. Again.
Yeah.
Go back. By the way, speaking of back, Middlecoff is back from the weekend thanks to our friends at Liquid IV. LiquidIV.com. Code HAM. Get you 25% off. Get your hydration on, John.
Do you know what I had to use the other day, and I didn't know about it until we did the read, and then I started powering them down, are the extra hydrations. They're just like the blue one right there. It contains 5 essential vitamins, vitamin C. You just pour that bad boy in there.
Hydration multiplier.
The hydration multiplier. So it's like you're super dehydrated. You pour one of those into a water. It's like tripling down. Mm-hmm. I've taken a couple of those the last couple of days. I feel so much more hydrated. It really works, and it tastes pretty good. Like that's what was impressive. Sometimes when you pour those in, they taste funny. That is not the case. It has sometimes with the sugary sports drinks, no one wants, 180 calories from a small Gatorade. Yeah. Right. So, Liquid IV, go to liquidiv.com, promo code HAM at checkout, 25% off anything you order. Get better hydration today. Obviously, the better hydrated you are. I actually think when I'm better, when I'm fully hydrated, my brain operates a little faster. I truly believe that.
Absolutely. And there's nothing like a good, strong stream, too, to make you feel good about yourself. A good 45-second pee. I know as the weather gets cooler, I've found this. I travel. We all do. And it's easy to get dehydrated when you do that. I am an aisle seat person on a plane specifically for that reason, because if I sit window, I'm not going to want to get up. And so I'm not going to drink because I don't want to pee. But that's not a good way to operate. So just because you're not sweating doesn't mean you are hydrated. Liquid IV contains 5 essential vitamins, more vitamin C than an orange, as much potassium as a banana. The sports drink, way less sugary than that. No artificial flavors or preservatives, less sugar than an apple. And you've got all kinds of options. You've got the hydration multiplier. You've got the hydration multiplier plus immune support. You've got the energy multiplier. A lot of options. Go check it out. For one thing that I've been making an effort is hydration before coffee, first cup.
I love my
coffee in the morning. You tried it?
I heard you say that, so I did it this morning.
Yeah.
With a Liquid IV.
Exactly.
And I felt fantastic all day.
I love coffee first thing, but if I hydrate first, it's just my body feels better. The coffee sets me up for a day of coffee. Does dehydrate you. It doesn't hydrate you anyway, but it's delicious. Grab your favorite Liquid IV flavors nationwide at Walmart, or you can get 25% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code HAM at checkout. That's 25% off anything you order when you get better hydration today using code HAM at liquidiv.com. Code HAM, liquidiv.com. Quick sidebar. G on the stream says, did you guys see Chris Broussard say the Bills lost because they lost their left tackle, Taylor Lewan?
Yes. I did. In fairness, I mean, I think sometimes in the heat of the moment, he's doing an early show. You just say something that you were wrong.
We've all made mistakes. I've done it, but there's nothing quite like the way the internet specifically likes a it goes back to the Hunter Henry. Was that Stephen A? Was that wasn't Stephen A say something about Hunter Henry?
Yeah, it was Stephen A.
Yeah. Like he's got this guy and this guy and Hunter Henry. People are like Hunter Henry's been out since like week 2. It's week 9. So it's always
Stephen A got roasted. And then it was like, Stephen A. is spread out too thin. He's doing MMA. He's doing NBA. They want him to know everything about the NFL. This is unfair. It's like, guys, he's fucking just talking nothing on TV. No, who cares?
For $13 million.
Yeah, this is just sports, guys. And then the media gets so jealous. Like, it's just, I don't even care.
Well, I don't care either. There's something to be said for when you speak with authority, you should know what you're talking about. But yeah, it's not.
I say this all the time about the NFL. And I'll never forget being in it thinking like, and it's all I did. It can be overwhelming. Like to really be good at it, you can't just be like, I talk some NFL, baseball, like to really know your shit about all these teams. There are so many players on every team. It's constantly changing. Guys are getting hurt. So you could be like, you could just drop a name. The guy could have been on IR for 4 weeks. You don't even know. So you got to be careful.
Some intern might have given Broussard that take,
It's a hard league to follow, truly, like the nitty gritty of like the linemen and the D linemen.
For sure.
And it's no one's gonna be like, Patrick Mahomes on IR and you not know, right? But it can happen pretty quickly with like running. You could be like, watch out for Nick Chubb this Thursday night, and people be like, he's missed the last couple nights, right? That could happen. That could happen pretty easily.
Yep. All right, Trey Lance, John, not practicing as of Monday. We'll see how things play out. When he got injured. Sprained knee after his first start against the Cardinals a couple weeks ago. The immediate story was probably won't be back for the Colts game. Well, he wasn't back for Monday's practice, and I think one thing we know, the week prior when Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't back for Monday and then wasn't back for Wednesday and then wasn't back for Thursday and maybe he could go Friday, and then guess what? He didn't play and wasn't available and wasn't wearing pads. So as two people thought we would see Trey Lance this week, that's how it looks. It's trending at this point.
Listen, I don't want to be like Steve. I have this thought, and I've told you this last week when he was at the Giants game. I'm like, he's going to be fine. They would not send him to the Giants game with a sprained knee. Because when you have a sprained knee, right, or any lower body injury, typically you want to stay off of it. So I was like, he's good. Like it probably was, and I didn't think it was that big of a deal anyway because we didn't really see it. And anytime you don't truly see an injury, like when you see Nick Chubb, or not Nick Chubb, but see, it's easy
Kareem
to
Hunt.
mess up your names. Kareem Hunt, where it looks like he tears his Achilles, and then as he's like going down, reach for the back of his leg, you're like, oh my God. But then it turns out his calf, but it still makes sense. He's reaching for the back, and like best case scenario, it's like actually good. He avoided disaster. But with Trey, we didn't see anything. And then he goes to the game, like they wouldn't let him go to the game on a sprained knee. And then he's missing practice. And I go, what is going on here? Now, I'm no medical professional. So I texted a head trainer in the NFL, and I gave him the same scenario, but with his city, his quarterback, his baseball team. And I said, if they were having a playoff baseball team, would you allow him to go? Kind of tongue-in-cheek, but being kind of serious. Like, I know I might sound a little crazy. I said, what would you do? He said,
would you let Tua go to a Marlins game?
Yes. He said, I would not advise that, no. Now, this is pro sports. These guys, even though Trey's 21, this is not college. Like if Nick Saban didn't want Bryce Young or Love? Bryce Young to go to an Alabama basketball game because he had a tweaked ankle, he would not go to the basketball game. It'd be very black and white, right? Same at Ohio State. You see the linebacker, I think it happened like a couple weeks ago, maybe even a month ago, like the week after Oregon. He left the game. They started tweeting at halftime. They kicked him off the next day. It's just it's closer to high school than it is the pros, even with the NIL. But in pros, like if you want to do something as a pro athlete, even if the head coach tells you no, like you have a lot of juice too. So listen, I did think it was a little weird. And then the moment he's not practicing, like I just started questioning, like, what operation we running? I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah,
if you have a sprained knee guy, you're not walking around on it.
Yeah, I mean, there are degrees to sprained knees. I'm with you.
It's clearly not good enough to practice.
Right, which part of me, you go back to what they said at the beginning of the week or at the end of last week after the Cardinal game, which is he's probably not coming back for the Colts game. So maybe maybe there's been not even really much question as to whether or not he'd be able to play for a week plus.
But
right?
but it's also why I texted the trainer, because I don't want to say this and just act like an idiot, because I've never sprained a knee. But his answer was pretty just black and white. I would advise against it. NFL trainer who's been had a lot of success.
You gotta listen to the science, John. You gotta listen to the doctors. No,
yeah.
No, it's fair. I mean, but here's the thing: it doesn't look like he's playing this week. That's what matters. And so now the question is like, is he going to be available for them the following week?
Well, if he's not practicing on Wednesday, like he's out, right?
Yeah,
I don't know out for the
two
game. Like
things
he
here.
might dress or whatever, but he won't be starting if he's not practicing on Wednesday.
But he might not be starting even if he hadn't been hurt, if Jimmy Garoppolo's healthy.
No, I agree, but I'm just saying,
Right.
like it'll be set in stone, basically. Like Trey's not starting this week if he misses multiple days of practice.
Yeah, I don't think he gets the same. Let's see how he looks Friday that Jimmy gets. At least with that, even though
I don't even know if Jimmy was truly getting that right.
No, he might not have. But the point is, like, is he healthy enough the next week? And if he is, then what do you do? Well, if the Niners beat the Colts this week, I'd be shocked then if Jimmy Garoppolo isn't the starting quarterback again for the 49ers. Maybe it never really changed in Kyle's mind. It changed in ours. But that's the position that Trey's in right now. And look, if the offshoot is they win a bunch of games and go to the playoffs, fine. But as we've watched these other rookies, we talked about it. Like, you play a game, it's hard as a rookie. There's a lot going on. You just can't wait to get back on the field again. And we don't know right now when he'll be back on the field again.
Well, I think the one concerning thing is, and it's just going to be the nature of the way he plays, right? Because he is he's such a big physical athlete, and Kyle's going to use him to run the ball. Now, will it always, as he become the full-time starter, the offense could morph, right? It won't just truly look like Cam Newton, but that's going to be an element of his play. I don't think that's really debatable, right? Is that Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson have started every game. And that, I don't think they're playing with the 92 Cowboys offensive line in front of them. And they're not running like he is, but they're lasting. Mac Jones also started every game, keeps on playing. Fields, since he's come in, I guess he tweaked his knee, I think, in one game. Andy Dalton came in for a play, but then he came right back in, and he hasn't missed any time since. I'm not overreacting to an injury in the sense of like making some statement that this guy's injury prone or anything, but it is just, when I worked in the NFL, my first year, I was in charge of inputting injuries. And like when a guy like, a veteran player gets injured, they might have a list of like, if the guy at the time, like 2010 or 11, he had been in the league since 99, he has a long list, right? Broken arm, torn labrum, just a concussion, right? Got sick, but you just have this long list. It does start like this. If you just have like his player profile, if I'm the Arizona Cardinals, sprained knee. It's just something to like, is he, the Niners did just go through a situation with Jimmy Garoppolo, which clearly he's flawed, he never improved, whatever, but he was functional enough to keep them just in the mix if he had just never missed a game this entire time, right? If he had never missed a game this entire time, they still might have ended up somehow with a different quarterback this year, but I don't think Trey Lance is probably on the team. So just because they would have won more games, it would have been harder to get up that high. They were kind of unique because Jimmy missed so many games last year that they were high enough that they could even make the trade from 12 to 3. It was like a big issue with like the football team. It's like, we don't have enough ammo to get from 20 to 5. That's a long way to go. And it's just something to keep an eye on. Like, he's one game and a half in, and he's injured. Like, that's not disputable.
And what appears to be a multi-week injury, right? Like,
yeah, and it's an injury for an athletic guy knee. It's just something, it's just like, God, not ideal.
Well, there's no one's 100%, right? At this
like the
point.
Baker injury, right? The labrum, isn't that a little freaky? Like, he gets slammed, he keeps falling on it. Like, it's kind of unavoidable at this point now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I wanted to take the side of that could mean something, I go, I don't know, quarterbacks that size, they get thrown to the ground.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, it's not a good thing.
The reality is time. We just have to wait and see. Jimmy Garoppolo now, we have multiple years where he's been injured. Hopefully it's a one-off with Trey Lance. But we go back to the way he plays. It might have happened in the pocket for all we know. One thing I loved about him in college was he clearly tries to throw before he runs. And I think I saw that with him in the NFL. Like, he's looking to throw. I didn't ever feel like he left the pocket before he should have, right? You see that sometimes with quarterbacks where they get out of the pocket and you're like, where are you going? Like, no, there's nobody there. I didn't think Trey Lance ever vacated the pocket just because there was a clock in his head going off. He left the pocket when he had to go. So I do think he has a pretty good feel for what's happening around him in that sense. Would you agree with that before I make the second half of this point?
Yeah.
So when I look at his runs, like they were A, designed, or B, him running for his life. Ideally, you don't design however many were designed and then have to run another 8 or 9 times. Trey Lance has more rushing attempts than Justin Fields at this point.
Watching Fields against the Packers, he actually doesn't run that much.
Now, the game that he ran the most in was his first start. He had 10 rushing attempts in that game, the Cincinnati game.
Well, who?
Fields.
Oh, his first. Oh, I got you.
His first, because he came in right against the Rams, but then didn't he start the Bengal game?
I thought he started against the Browns. Was his first NFL start.
Maybe the Bengal game was the game that Dalton got hurt in, and he had played a couple of snaps in the previous game. Yeah, you're right. So his first extended action where he threw the ball more than Andy did in that game. That's where he had the most rushing attempts, was his first extended action. He had 10 attempts, and that's the most he's had this year. That's not been not been really a big part of his game. But we don't know yet. We got to see. That's part of the point here is we have to see Trey Lance play more, because part of this is Trey Lance learning. Part of it is the offensive line learning to block for him. Part of it is the receivers learning where he is. And part of it is Kyle learning how to coach this guy. He has never coached a player like this. Yes, he coached RG3. RG3 was different, right? Jimmy was different. Kirk is different. Mullins is different. But Kyle has never had a franchise quarterback like this that he's trying to build a franchise around. Never. Matt Ryan was different. Matt Schaub was different.
I had someone on Twitter, clearly a big Niner fan, just tweet at me, not in an aggressive way, but just like, hey, I'm watching the Monday night game, and it looks like Josh Allen has a pretty loopy release like Trey Lance. Do you see that? Like, just asking a real question, just a normal interaction on the twitter.com. And he does. He has a loopier release like Trey. And I really kind of honed in for like a couple series. And I'd known that. A major difference, and this is a positive, like, you can keep a loopier release. Josh just gets rid of it really fast. It's not a hindrance. It doesn't take a long time to get out of his hand. So when he decides to throw it, it just goes fast. It's just like a quick cock and it's gone. Now, but it's the same rotation where Trey's, and your point, a couple weeks ago was like maybe the more comfortable he gets, the faster it gets, and that's the hope. But
that his brain gets faster, and so he gets rid of the ball quicker.
Keep an eye on Josh Allen's release. It is longer in terms of like the length of it, but in terms of the time, once he sees the guy where he wants to throw, it's out of his hand fast.
Yeah.
So, because I do think Josh Allen is going to be a guy that they keep kind of, people are going to want him to be like, right?
I watched Josh Allen last night, and I said the other day that I thought Herbert's arm was a little stronger than Josh Allen's. I was watching the game last night going, that was probably incorrect. I'm sure we could get them to do a throwing contest, but Josh is every bit of Herbert.
Well, I thought the throw that he made, a touchdown to Beasley, and it looked easy, right? Beasley's wide open in the back of the end zone. He throws it.
Was that when he was rolling right and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting?
Then they go to the replay. He's at the 40. He's rolling right at the 40-yard line. And Beasley catches the ball 5 yards into the end zone. So that means it's 45-yard throw. And the ball was on a rope. And I started thinking, like, Dak Prescott and Cousins right now are guys that are having top 12 seasons right now as quarterbacks. I don't think either one of them could do that. Now, they could make that throw, but I think they would have to stop, gather, and let it rip. Like Mahomes, Herbert, it's like even Lamar would probably have to set his feet to not even – guys do that 20-yard throws, and that's just a bright side of Trey Lance, like having the arm power, like that will be something, explosive plays when they pulled the trigger to draft him. I think they're thinking, big plays, right?
Yeah. They're thinking top 5 quarterback.
What separated Josh is the layup stuff now he does with his eyes closed, right? Just the basic throws. He's hitting guys in stride. Like the easy stuff, he's like an A+ at now. Maybe not an A+, but he's in the A range.
Also does some crazy things with his body that he just pops up from.
He's big. He's bigger, I think, than Trey.
I mean, he's huge. He just throws his body around in a wild way.
I talked to one of our mutual friends last night. He's been pretty adamant that he claimed that he was at multiple stops, colleges, and he begged an offensive coordinator and head coaches to sign him. They wouldn't. He said an underrated part about Josh coming out of high school that people don't talk about enough is that he wasn't this tall. And he forwarded me the picture of, that famous picture of the fireball. They were at the camp, and Derek was still. And Derek had him by about 2 inches. He was like a little under 6'1" his senior year in high school. When he went to junior college, and it's got to be a great feeling as a human being to be like, oh yeah, I just grew at 19 years old about 4 inches. Like that's got to be pretty cool. It did not happen to me and you.
Yeah.
And so I think he grew that year at junior college like 3 or 4 inches. But he also showed me his statistics at he go to JC Ball in Bakersfield, I think, right?
He went to Reedley Junior College.
He was 47% as a passer that year at JC Ball. So it was like, he got bigger.
And that's not good.
Well, he just wasn't. He wasn't very accurate. So it was just. It's easy to say now. I do think it was probably at the time a lot more people pounding the table for him were fewer and far between than like Josh Allen, right? We kind of do the same with Trey Lance. Like, who the hell wasn't offering him? I bet if we really watched his high school film, probably didn't look like Trevor Lawrence,
Yeah, there's a clear profile of who gets offered. Like everybody offers, right? When you're like, oh, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, LSU, Clemson offer this guy. You can pretty much guess what he's going to look like and what his stats are going to be.
Well, I'll never forget
big and fast, and the stats will be good.
Well, last year the Cardinals were on a Monday Night Football game, and he's an outlier body type, right? Who was getting recruited by the SEC, A&M, who I guess was in the SEC at the time, or maybe they were still in the Big 12 at the time. I think they were because Kevin Sumlin. What do you think? SEC when they offered Kyler Murray coming out of high school, or Big 12? Probably been right at that time.
Like they've been in the SEC now for like 8 years, right?
Yeah, so you're probably right. They probably were in the SEC. And it came up, whatever high school he went to, which was like the Alabama of high school football in Texas, he didn't lose a game. Sophomore, junior, senior year, and he was a starting quarterback. You're like, well, it's like Bryce Young's a little smaller, and I watch him. I go, yeah, he's pretty sweet. I was at the gym this morning, and they, for whatever reason, always have like SEC Network on one of the televisions. I just look up. They have like the highlights of the game Alabama, Mississippi State, which was clearly Alabama got coached hard after that L they took 2 weeks ago. They beat the shit out of them. And Bryce, he is not, I would imagine shoes off, Bryce Young, 6'1". Like, he does not look very big.
Yeah.
But Kyler's he's got Kyler by 3 inches.
Yeah, Kyler was committed in 2014. They actually went in 2012, so this is like year 10 for A&M in the SEC. So they were an SEC team.
Yeah. So he was that good.
14. Yeah, he was that good. All right, what about Garoppolo, John? He's back. That's the way it looks. As we record this on a Tuesday, he practiced Monday. We all saw the video. I think the initial video I saw, was Cam Inman posted a video of Jimmy running around. And I do wonder, kind of in the conversation with Trey, even if Trey Lance were healthy and Jimmy looked like that, would he be the starting quarterback this week? But there doesn't, we're at this place where there doesn't seem like there's much debate about it. And one thing I did think watching it was maybe he can just force the ball to Brandon Ayuk this week. Maybe that's one thing that can come of this.
This is just go back to what we talked about a little while ago. And this is, I don't know, a little forced on him because of the injuries, but this is not an ideal situation to be in, going back and forth with quarterbacks. It's got a little, even the Chicago Bears, once Andy they just kind of went with Justin. And remember Nagy was like, Dalton, it was after he had made multiple starts, like, Dalton's still our guy. And then, like, by the next Monday, like, oh, we're just sticking with Fields. In this situation, again, sprained knee, he can't practice, he can't play. I get it. But this is not what good teams do. This is not a situation they envision themselves being in. Jimmy was going to start, like, it was just going to be a black and white break, right? In sense of Jimmy started till X games, and then Trey came in and finished, right? Whether that was 17 and he just sat the whole time, whether that was the 9-game stretch because they were 4-5 and they needed a spark. There wasn't a plan to like, well, Jimmy comes out and then Trey comes in and then Trey plays a game and a half and now Jimmy's back. How do I expect Jimmy to look any good? Hasn't been playing. He's missed now. He missed the half and then he missed the full game. I would imagine this last week at the bye, he's just rehabbing to feel good. Now, I did see some clips of him at practice. It looked like he was full go and looked normal. But let's not forget, Jimmy wasn't that great before he left. Like you always said this whole offseason, I think people think you're getting, even if he starts, we saw like Jimmy Garoppolo now is a pretty flawed player. If Jimmy Garoppolo's starting against Carson Wentz, like they have the better quarterback. And I guess they would too if Trey Lance was starting, given that it's his second start, but it's advantage Colts.
Yes, it's advantage Colts on. It could also, you could watch the game and it could look like advantage 49ers.
You see Field Yates' tweet the other day about Carson Wentz, all the picks he's thrown the last couple of years. Like you got to give Frank and the Colts credit. He only has one interception this year
and 9 touchdowns.
Yeah,
9 touchdowns.
That wasn't a ratio Jeffrey Lurie was used to seeing when he was crashing those direct deposits of $35 million.
No. I mean, he's. I'll pull him up here in a second. He's 1 pick this year. He was 15 in 2020. Led the league. Now, I will say this it's hard because he wasn't. I mean, in 19, John, he played 16 games. He only had 7 picks. The year before that, 7. The year before that, 7. But he didn't play full seasons in those 2 years.
Jimmy only has 2 this year.
Look, if Garoppolo starts 3 more games this year, think about this. It'll be the second most starts he's ever had in a season. The most starts obviously was 19. He started every game. Then in 20, he started 6. So we've all been down this road. It's been litigated and relitigated. How many games? Jimmy hasn't really played a full season, on and on and on. But to your point, if it not even to be critical of Garoppolo, not to be critical of Kyle, not to be critical of, it's just the reality of he has not been in ideal situations, in part because he can't stay healthy. And, if Trey Lance is the quarterback again in 3 weeks, we're talking all these hypotheticals now. That again makes that's a month that the offensive line didn't get with Trey Lance. I
know. That's what I'm saying. The ebb and flow is not healthy for your football team. It's just not. It goes back to the crisis mode. It makes it more difficult to get out of it and get to smooth sailing. Like back to the Colts. They just say what you want. Like now that Carson's back, they just feels like they have a little stability at their quarterback position, which is the biggest, most important position in football. The moment you get stability in that position, you just feel like the Chiefs. They can't stop a nosebleed. They have issues galore, but we got Mahomes, right? Anytime your quarterback is just taken care of, he's like, oh, we got a quarterback situation. Even with Seattle, when what created the crisis was his finger snapped. It was like they'll be fine. Russell will pull shit out of his ass. He'll get them back. But
and Russell's healthy a lot. If you lose a year because Russell got hurt, that's part of the sport.
Yeah. So the Niners have multiple quarterbacks injuries.
Well, what do you think? If I told you right now that Jimmy Garoppolo starts the next 11 games, the rest of the season, what do you think that looks like?
How would I be able to pick the 49ers as a playoff team going into 2022 when I have no clue about Trey Lance?
Well, yeah, I'm not talking about 22 or Trey Lance. I'm just saying, if I said Jimmy Garoppolo starts the next 11 games for them, what do you think happens?
I would say they would start rattling off some wins.
Yeah.
That would be a positive because they would probably be competing to make the playoffs. Because it would make no sense if you were several games under 500 to keep starting a guy that's not going to be on your team next year.
Yeah, and you don't want to be in a back-and-forth position trying to win 10 games, miss the playoffs, and then have to commit to the young guy and basically be the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah. But I think one major difference with the Miami Dolphins and Tua and Trey is like a huge knock on Tua is, right, you see him, you go, God, he's small, his little pea shooter arm. The coolest thing, he's left-handed, so it looks cool, but it's just like, something's off. With Trey, I think the thing is, you go, well, he's got this big physical, all these traits. We need to start molding it like clay. Like watching Brian Daboll, who it feels like it's a lock to get a head coaching job this year. They just spent years with Josh, game in, game out. Like his whole first year, everyone's shitty first year. He got to play 16 games. So what did they do all OTAs? Pulling up plays. I bet if we sat down with Daboll and Josh Allen over beers, they'd be like, you don't understand how much time we spent March, April, May going into my second year just dissecting the living shit out of my rookie year, what we need to do, and just hammering home. Because you have the film to build off of. Like when you have the base of, what are you really building off with, Trey? Just the one game, if in your scenario, and the half? That's really not that much. Now, there are some basic things you would know, but like, hey, Josh, remember when week 12, your rookie year, when you got that quarter, half coverage that you had never seen before in your life on the third down when we had called this play? Oh, yeah, let's bring that up. Well, hey, this is what we did with when I was with Tom Brady and we get this look. Where with Trey, it's all, that whole offseason would all, for the most part, be in theories and hypotheticals, not on tangible data. Like, I would say at minimum, anything less than like 6 games of data would be pretty big. Just like, it'd just be a huge unknown question mark all offseason, which would suck.
The only way you can justify it is if you're in the playoffs. And even then, it would feel like you've missed out. And to be clear, I don't look at Trey like I look at Tua. I thought watching Tua last year that they had a problem on their hands, and they clearly do have a problem.
And at least he got a lot of action in, right? That second half of the season. He had to play a lot.
Yeah, part of the playing the guy is like, we're going to have to make a decision here, right? It's the same reason Josh Rosen played a lot of games for the Cardinals. It turned out it was good because then they could make an informed decision to move on from him.
I do wonder if Watson, that situation hadn't happened, would he be on the Miami Dolphins? Feels like there's like a 50-50 shot he was, right?
Yeah, that they would have decided before even needing to see Tua this year that they'd moved on. There's going to be...
the Niners' problem was they had just more ammo to go land them than... Remember, they had all those picks? The Niners were like, well, we don't even have that many picks.
Yeah, right. The Dolphins made more... Yeah. The only thing that was going to be a factor, right, was if Deshaun said, I want to go there and not there. Right? If Deshaun dictated destinations. Yeah. But if you were Houston and you're being held hostage, kind of, you go, no, we're getting the most we can get for you.
Didn't feel like the preacher and Caserio were just going to be bent over by Deshaun Watson.
No, they're going to try to avoid it. But the Niners could have given him a bunch of stuff. I mean, the Niners could have given him the Trey Lance package. And
I got to give what's his name, the bald preacher, credit. He's kept a low profile since football started. You notice that? I haven't seen his name guy on one social media post. I haven't seen anything going viral. I haven't seen any of him. Just like a picture of him at practice with a whistle,
video of him preaching.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I give him. He pivoted pretty well when it felt like everyone was gunning for him. You just, the key is when everyone's gunning for you, just go underground. AKA when you just suck, no one even cares.
There's going to be like, is that job going to be open this year?
I doubt it.
They'll keep Cully another year?
Well, their team's going to be so bad next year. What when you just give them the 2 years?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out exactly where Brian Daboll is going to be a coach next year. Does he want the Jacksonville job? Like it is Trevor Lawrence. It's bad every other aspect, but if the Vikings, Denver,
Minnesota,
I don't think
Denver.
Fangio deserves to be fired at this point, but you never know. They could get testy there.
New General Patton's there. The Raiders have an opening right now. That's a fluid situation.
Ooh, that would be an interesting one.
Feels like McCarthy's okay. Yeah,
McCarthy's
I don't
okay.
know.
Giants.
If I'm Daboll, like I'm on a pretty good situation. I think I'd learn from some of these guys that have taken these jobs. It's gone really shitty. Wouldn't you just? You're probably making $3 million. You got Josh Allen. Your team's awesome. You get to run half the team. I'd be pretty I wouldn't just. Yeah, I wouldn't just jump at. He did coach at Alabama. Could LSU call him?
Yeah. Yeah. But I think the Raider job would be one I'd have circled if I were Daboll.
Yeah, I think he'd be interested. I think he's pretty good. Like watching the Bills offense. Like they do some sweet shit. They had that Dawson Knox guy, that guy can run. Gave him a carry at the goal line.
Maybe he caught the touchdown I was thinking of. Red zone. It was baby zone.
He did throw the touchdown, but it was more like a push. Like he did not want
tough throw to make.
It. Yeah, and he did.
You got to throw the ball up to Josh Allen and give him a chance.
It felt like those two teams had a little fun in practice this week. One guy ran the low kneel miracle at the what was that? What's that play called again?
Music City Miracle.
Music City Miracle. So they put that in practice. They had a Philly special play put in. So, maybe Monday Night Football, you might as well put in a trick play or two. Just keep the guys super locked in.
The Music City Miracle, hard play to pull off. And the fact that it was a forward pass was like, the least, what the best case scenario for them. That thing like could have been intercepted. I've never seen the returner get hit as he throws, unless it's like an end of game scramble type situation. I remember one of the best ones. Might be illegal. Was a few years ago.
Did Lowe make the throw?
No, Lowe.
Caught it, hands it off to Frank, and then they throw it to Dyson because Dyson ran it. So Dyson is the guy catching.
I thought Frank threw it. Why check?
I thought so too. What was Lowe's role then? He was just in on the play.
No, I think he did. I thought he did something. You're right. I thought Lorenzo did something on the play. But I know that was not the way to honor him. Like that Philly play they ran, that was in honor of
Okay, so what happens is Lowe catches it. He hands it to Frank. Frank runs with like Lowe in his classic move, lead blocker. Like, okay. Then Dyson's sitting there waiting. Frank turns, throws a dime. Because I was thinking, Lowe really made that throw? Fullback with the neck roll? That'd be a hard throw to make.
Yeah.
Lowe catches. Great catch by Lowe. He catches out of the air, hands to Frank. Frank does a sweet, like, right as the guy's going to hit him, turns, throws kind of like a shortstop.
Oh, so he is getting hit as he throws.
Yeah.
My favorite one, awesome. Which might be
That's a
legal.
walk-off playoff. Man, it doesn't get much better than that, right?
No.
That's as good as it gets.
Well, how about having the kickoff return for a touchdown? What game was that? Was that Sunday Night Football?
Well, no, there was one last night.
Oh, that was last night.
And there was a hold on the play.
He
was grabbing him.
They did a great job of showing that play at the end of the game as like a reminder. No, I was just going to say the special teams one that a few years ago, Oregon State ran one where I think they're wearing black and the guy lays down wearing black in the black end zone. The ball like gets caught on the other side and then he pops up and they throw it to him. And I think that might not be legal anymore. Or maybe even at the time, but that's a good one. Camouflage in the end zone.
That one's pretty sweet. I always love a good two returners. One guy, when the ball's on the opposite side of the field, is just pretending it's going to go to him. All the defenders are going right to him. The other guy randomly catches it. No one's around him, and just
even the camera guy. The camera's like,
and then the only guy left is like the punter, and he's got no chance of like catching like some DB in the open field. That's a good play.
Hey, speaking of a good play, the Performance Package 4.0, John, that's code HAM. Get you 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. The right tools for the job. Proper grooming requires precision engineered tools. Not only does a man's sensitive area require it, but hygiene demands it.
Well, Guy, how about the Weed Whacker, which is the greatest? It's actually the only nose trimmer I've ever owned. But you shove that thing up there. You don't even shove it. You just put it up there very lightly.
Just kind of gently hold it.
You don't even feel it, and then it just starts doing work. The Weed Whacker just starts doing work, and those hairs that are just sometimes are like down to the middle of your mustache are just gone. It's like, this thing is absolutely incredible. I love the lawnmower series, the 3.0, the 2.0, and now we got the 4.0. I got them all. I think the Weed Whacker is the coolest thing that they have provided for us, and I can't recommend it enough. Manscaped.com. Promo code HAM, 20% off, free shipping. If you got nose hairs, and let's face it, I think the older you get as guys, those things just start growing.
I found one 2 days ago. Normally they grow down. I found one growing up.
Yeah.
Like, not deep inside the nasal canal, like right on top of the lip, growing up. I was like, wait a second. It was long too.
Yeah. That's why our friends at Manscaped came up with a Weed Whacker, guy. You got to weed whack that bad boy fast.
Manscaped.com, promo code HAM, 20% off and free shipping, 20% off and free shipping. And the wireless charging system is a system to behold. The convenient dock wirelessly charges the Lawnmower 4.0 by transferring energy from the dock to the trimmer via electromagnetic induction. Science. Get yourself cleaned up like Middlecoff for date night tonight. Lawnmower 4.0. Available now. 20% off and free shipping, code HAM at manscaped.com. That's 20% off free shipping, manscaped.com, code HAM.
Do it.
Oh, also brought to you by Indeed. Whoop! Indeed, John. Indeed.com/ham, $75 credit to sponsor your first job post.
Listen, guy, we got supply chain issues. We got hiring issues. We got problems. That's where our friends at Indeed come in for you. If you run a business, if you're part of hiring at the business you work for, you probably need some help. We got some chaotic times, but Indeed, $75 sponsored job credit. They help you get in front of the right candidates. You invite to apply through an instant match. The people that you do are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than those who just see it in the search, according to Indeed data. It helps funnel the people you're looking for right toward you. Indeed.com/ham. Offer valid through December 31st. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
You can choose from more than 130 skill tests, then add your must-have requirements so you only pay for applications and applicants that meet them. Like John said, get started right now. $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/ham. That's Indeed.com/ham. Terms and conditions apply. What's up with are they trying to take the Raiders from Mark Davis, John?
Well, funny you bring up Mark Davis. Is right in my timeline. Mark Davis spoke with the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And in there, he said, there's not much more that I could say. All the talking heads are making up all sorts of stuff. That's all it is. We don't stand for it.
So is he saying don't believe Jason Lockenfora's report that there are people believe that the NFL's trying to take the Raiders from Mark Davis? Is that who he's talking about?
He was just saying, listen, okay, the Raiders stand for diversity, inclusion, social justice. We always have and we always will. The emails that came out are not what we stand for. So no one is acting like you stand for that. So I don't really know what he's talking about, actually. I think he's just angry.
What did Lockenfora say then?
That Mark Davis thinks he's getting railroaded.
Which I can see a lot of logic to that theory, and I can understand why he'd feel that way. Because there's league meetings coming up, right?
Later this month, yes, with owners' meetings. So basically the 35 of them.
So is something going to happen?
Well, do you feel he's likely to cause a scene there?
I mean, would you say he caused a scene when they booted him out of the LA stadium deal?
If I remember that correctly, Badane got up and said some things, if I remember, kind of speaking on behalf of Mark. At the time, they kind of had their back against the wall, it felt, right? And they needed to get something done, and he was kind of playing politics, and Badane kind of crushed everyone for fucking them. Remember that?
Yeah, it was not, but I don't know who is his point person now for situations like this, because Badane is gone. So is he going to have a moment?
He might. He should. I mean, if he feels that way, wouldn't that be the time?
Yeah, the problem for him, and when I can, like, if I'm going to be sympathetic, is it seemed like maybe Spanos was like a guy that he had some relationship with, right? A positive relationship. And obviously that ended when
it felt like Dean jumped on the other ship.
Yeah, right? they were in it together. Like they were going to do their own stadium, right?
Yeah.
And
I don't. Dean has worked out,
Yeah,
well.
I get no, but who are his allies? And if you have a couple of allies, maybe it makes it easier to stand up in a meeting like that and rip people. But also maybe he feels like he's got nothing to lose at this point if they're coming for his team, if that's what he thinks is happening. But I know this: if I were in his position, I would absolutely believe specifically leaked documents that only call out Bruce Allen and John Gruden, but specifically Gruden first. That if I were Mark and that's all I knew that had happened, I would feel like I was targeted too.
I would too. I don't blame him at all.
Because it feels like everybody else gets protected.
Well, here's the thing. And listen, I get they have to do it in these times. And a lot of people that see this probably don't know. Like, no one questions the Raiders' views on this stuff. Like, it's well established in terms of inclusion, diversity. Like, it's well established. In American business, right? They would stand out. They were ahead of the curve 40, 50 years ago, from his father to him. I mean, think about the guy that he hired to run his entire football operation when his dad died was Reggie McKenzie. So, like, even if you're like, well, that was his dad, no, like, Mark stands for it too. But, like, they clearly are in this weird spot of the league wants Mark gone. I don't know how they're going to be able to just kick him out of the league. Like, they really can't. He's kind of, in their eyes, kind of stuck. It does feel a little bit like a country club. And the NFL would be the equivalent to me of like Augusta National. And every member to get in there is such in the ultimate exclusive club. And the difference is at Augusta, you got to pay to be there. In the NFL, you're getting paid. And now Mark.
Well, some people have to pay to get in. In
Where?
the NFL, some people have to buy a team at this point.
Oh, yeah.
But
And everyone at one point in time, their family potentially did. Some paid more than others. Tepper would be like, yeah, I paid.
yeah, Tepper would be like, why is his parking spot better than my parking spot?
So, like, I just don't. They want him out because he is in one of the most valuable areas now in the league in Vegas and has a really cool stadium. And it just seems like they don't like him. Like he's not one of them. And he's clearly not. Now, his dad was never really one of them, but he was definitely more entrenched than Mark. Right? So I think it's actually going to get uglier before it gets better. But you cannot argue that, okay, we did a huge investigation on Dan Snyder, which we all agree is like a royal scumbag, and the only collateral damage came out was on the Raiders. And you just took that.
They're like,
and then 3 days later, did you see they threw Sean Taylor a party by the porta potties, and then they put, Jackson Mahomes, like, what is that guy doing dancing on the deal? But
John, the VIP area, there was a rope, right? The rope was not around the number on the field for Sean Taylor. The rope was the VIP area, and all the VIPs were walking over Sean Taylor's name.
Yeah, it was just a clown, and it just.
And Dan, did you see the photo of Dan Snyder like in a hoodie to meet with the family? Like I'm pro hoodie, but that's disrespectful.
The whole thing was a bad look.
Someone had a great tweet. They're like, maybe it was Kevin Clark. He's like, this is one of two things. Either they did this last minute to try and detract from the negative press they were getting, or this is what it looks like when the Washington football team spends 4 months planning something.
Yeah.
Either way is bad. Sorry. Keep going.
I just don't think it's going to go away. I mean, if they want him out, it's only going to get uglier, right? They'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah, ultimately,
I think they want Dan Snyder out, but he clearly is a harder nut to crack, right? And I'm not saying Mark's easy,
in
but
some ways. But Dan, at least we know, has like all kinds. Like there's an HR investigation in Dan's organization.
But
right?
guy, nothing happened. Like it just went
right.
away.
But what I'm saying is they at least were able to get into his building. That was about Dan. Like the Gruden thing was about Gruden. It was not about Mark Davis. Ultimately, Donald Sterling lost the Clippers because of something he did. Like that's what it takes. So if Mark Davis hasn't done anything that's going to get the team ripped away from him, no matter how dirty it is, right? No matter whatever level of investigation, house of cards they got to go to find it. Like if it doesn't exist.
I was watching, I flipped on Rory won the CJ Cup in Las Vegas, and it's like, you can see the strip when they do the aerial shot, but it'd be like the equivalent of like Walnut Creek in the city. You could tell it's like a 20-minute drive, right? It's out kind of in the outskirts. They created this golf club from nothing. And Dan Hicks or whoever on Golf Channel's calling it. And they're like, some notable residents out here, Dana White, start listing just some guys you've never heard of, big business people. And Raiders owner Mark Davis built his pad out here. And you're like, I bet that's a sweet area to live, right? So Mark Davis is pretty well established in Vegas, right? He's going to all the sweet clubs. Like he's kind of entrenched. And in his mind, he'd be like, even if we can argue how much they actually did to get him, if Jerry did, the league did it, but he's there, And if he doesn't get in trouble, like you said, I don't see how they boot him. You can't, this isn't like,
they could find something for me. They could find Mark Davis. I don't even know, make up your controversy, but not every controversy is you can take a team from somebody for, right? Here's a video of Mark Davis at a strip club 9 years ago. Like, okay, well.
It's different. And listen, I feel like Mark Davis is infinitely more likable than anything we had ever heard growing up about Donald Sterling, who everyone hated.
Yeah.
But they did have the bullseye, it felt like, on that guy forever. And when they got their out, they booted him. If Mark Davis doesn't give them an out, like I just don't, it's going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah, I know.
But it doesn't mean they won't keep messing with him.
Maybe it's the warning, like first year coach, we're doing digging on you. I mean, if you're him, do you think they're digging on you right now? I would think so.
And the problem is, if you don't have any allies, like I'm gonna start digging on you, Roger. Well, who's helping you dig on him?
Jerry.
Jerry, call me back. You see the meme going around with like the Patriots and the Cowboys. Their embrace, Jerry and Robert.
Yeah.
They see each other. They get this huge smile and hug. And the
Yeah.
meme was like, when you delete your emails in time, and it's just those two guys smiling and hugging. It was a
That's
great
a good meme. That is a good meme. Well, Jerry like did the old like I'm gonna fight this guy thing. It's like,
You see Jerry making out with Steven?
no.
I mean, it was a pretty intense
They go
kiss.
hug and they both went the wrong way.
Yeah, well, it's a still shot that I saw, so I just think at the still shot they were going in for a hug, and they might have done some side cheek kiss, and it would kind of look like a little like Brady and his kid, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Shit happens.
Still
Some
photos.
families are kissers.
All right. On that note, adios, pelota.
Adios.
All right, everybody. Good hanging.
Keep fighting the good fight, Mark.
Yeah, stay at it, everybody.